Chapter 1061, Annihilation of Worms. Translator, Sitalan Editor. GGG. The poisonous worms sensed something was amiss as they anxiously screeched. They wanted to rob Jishuayen of her lifeblood before they met their end. But in an instant, the poisonous worm's very existence was obliterated by the law of destruction. Fua. Fua. 2 rings of light flashed, and 2 poisonous worms were erased by the destruction. Quickly, Ian moved both his hands up and, with a hand on each side, he pressed down on Jishuayen's temples. The destruction runes in his hand instantly manifested and condensed into the 10,000 demon wheel of existence inside her brain. The final slave worm was extinguished by Iyun. Truly, the power of destruction laws was terrifying. They could annihilate everything. As for the brain, it was a fragile organ. It would typically buckle under the laws of destruction, but Iyun's understanding of it was at an extremely high level. After he condensed the 9-leaf destruction Dao fruit, controlling the forces of destruction took no more effort than lifting a finger. With his perfect control over the law of destruction, he managed to destroy the 3rd slave worm while minimizing the damage to Jishuayen. Jishuayen suddenly felt the soul-ripping pain throughout her body vanish. Before she could even react, Ian placed a hand on her abdomen and streams of Yuan Qi surged into her body, restoring her vitality. It was only a matter of seconds before Ian removed his hands and reached into his interspatial ring, producing a set of clothes. He said lightly, "It's done, put those clothes on." "It's done?" Jishuayen was still in a daze. What was done? The disappearance of the excruciating pain gave her some guesses, but she found it impossible to believe her intuition. It was a matter of seconds from the moment Iyun made his first move. Yet, she was already treated? She immediately turned her perception inward to check her body. Indeed, she found that the poisonous worms in her dantian, heart, and brain had truly vanished. They didn't simply die, but nothing of their corpses remained. It was as though they had evaporated into nothingness. Jishuayen was stupefied. Her perception didn't lie. How did Iyun do it? Ordinarily, doctors needed a lengthy process to treat their patients, something that allowed the patients to feel like they were gradually getting better while igniting their hopes of survival. Finally, treatment would slowly begin. As the saying goes, illnesses strike suddenly, but the recovery of illnesses was like extracting silk. However, Iyun had acted too quickly. It happened so quickly that Jishuayen did not even notice her physical condition turned for the better. Ignoring the talk about igniting her hopes, she was certain a mere second ago that she would die. But the next second, Iyun told her that she was already well. Such a sudden reversal and miraculous medical skill made Jishuayen feel like she was in a dreamlike fantasy. What sort of person did she save? Furthermore, if he was so powerful, how did he end up collapsed in the desert with serious injuries? Senior, are you also well-versed in the art of healing? Jishuayen naturally knew Iyun was not using the arts of witchcraft worms to save her. In addition, he had not fed her any pills or medicine. The only possibility left was the art of healing. Art of healing? Iyun shook his head. I don't know any art of healing, but if you want me to kill some worms, I'm up to the task. Iyun's laws of destruction could only be used to destroy. Killing the worms was easy, but healing her body was a separate matter altogether. When those words reached her ears, Jishuayen didn't know whether she should laugh or cry. Kill some worms? Even witchcraft worm masters would find it a challenge to remove slave worms. However, Iyun had killed and removed 3 slave worms with such ease. Then he displayed such nonchalance that anyone not in the know would think that he had just squashed some ordinary worms with his foot. For Jishuayen, the shock of Iyun killing the slave worms was completely incomparable to the shock of him killing the old woman in red. When she thought of the dead old woman, Jishuayen could not help but burst into tears of joy. She still found it unbelievable that the suffocating blade hanging above her head had been so easily destroyed by Iyun. Everything threats, slave worms, and excruciating pain were now all gone, all in less than a minute. Senior. Ji Shuiyan held onto the clothes and gave Yi Yun a deep bow. I'll never forget the fresh lease on life you have given me twice. I swear that from this day on, as long as it's ordered or requested by Senior, I will do my best to accomplish it, no matter the cost or danger. Yi Yun said with a chuckle, Miss Shuiyan, there's no need for such solemnity. Although I saved you, you did save me prior to this as well. Ji Shuiyan shook her head and said, what I did is nothing compared to Senior's favor. Furthermore, even if no one had saved Senior, Senior would probably have awoken quickly. It would have taken quite a long time. Yi Yun responded with a bitter smile. If not for Ji Shuiyan, it was possible that it would take him a year or two. Who knows what might have happened during such a long period of time? Additionally, he would waste valuable cultivation time. However, Ji Shuiyan did not think of it as a serious loss. Compared to what she had been through, what was a few days of waiting? Meanwhile, Miss Shuiyan, I previously asked you about the old woman. Doesn't your Divine Secrets Trading Company have Dao Palace Realm warriors? Why were you under her control? Upon hearing his question, Ji Shuiyan's face was darkened by a bitter look. She shook her head and said, my Divine Secrets Trading Company does have a few Dao Palace Realm warriors holding down the fort. My grandfather was the head of the Divine Secrets Trading Company and he was already at the 5-story Dao Palace Realm. Furthermore, the company has elders, guest elders, numbering more than 10 Dao Palace Realm warriors. She paused before continuing, but then. Does Senior recall my mention of a remarkable phenomenon happening in the Sun Burial Sand Sea? It was first discovered by my Divine Secrets Trading Company. Grandpa believed that a treasure had appeared, so he took a few powerful elders and went in search of it. However, the resulting waves far exceeded their expectations, and something unfortunate happened. Her eyes looked down as she trailed off. That was the turning point of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. With Grandpa and the elders gone, we were like sheep for the slaughter in Sun Burial Sand Sea, as wealth alone is useless. I did not dare announce this matter publicly and tried my best to conceal the matter lest the Divine Secrets Trading Company be torn apart by others overnight. But there is no such thing as a complete secret, she continued. Others had managed to gather traces of clues. The Heaven Amplification Trading Company eventually got wind of it and began stirring. They were still uncertain about it, so they acted in the shadows by infiltrating the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Finally, a few months ago, the last remaining Dao Palace Realm guest elders were poached by them. Without Grandpa around, I couldn't do a thing. The Divine Secrets Trading Company began to face unprecedented danger, potentially even annexation by others. And it was at that moment when the old woman in red appeared. Chapter 1062, Heaven Secrets, Divine Secrets. Translator, Sitalan Editor. I do not know the old woman's name. I only know her surname is Ren and she comes from the Heaven Secrets chapter. Grandpa was once also under the tutelage of it. It was an orthodox sect, but many disciples did not cultivate in the chapter's cultivation techniques. The old woman was an extreme example with her cultivating ghost Dao cultivation techniques. She was Grandpa's junior sister, but she had a vendetta with Grandpa. I do not know what the grudge was, as Grandpa was no longer around, she directed all her hatred onto me. As for what followed, Senior already knows. In fact, even without her, I'll probably not end up fine. The Heaven Amplification Trading Company has been coveting my Divine Secrets Trading Company already. After Grandpa and the group of elders perished, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company had repeatedly tried probing my Divine Secrets Trading Company. They kept taking over storefronts that were ours, but all we could do was tolerate it in silence. Up to a month ago, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company's heir apparent, Yen Tiansong, sent a wedding invitation, requesting for my hand in marriage through my grandfather. He wanted me to marry him. As Ji Shuiyan came to this point, her chest heaved with fury as her face flushed red slightly. She said hatefully, I was already raring to kill Yin Tianzong, but he dared to shamelessly ask for my hand in marriage. He was planning on using my entire Divine Secrets trading company as the dowry, saving his efforts from annexing it. He would then be able to rightfully and openly take over all assets of the Divine Secrets trading company and prevent other factions from getting a slice of the pie. Upon hearing Ji Shuyan's story, Yi Yin shook his head. That was the world of warriors where strength was everything. If Ji Shuyan were to accept the proposal, the latter part of her life would definitely be tragic. However, if she were to reject it, the outcome would be similar. The Divine Secrets trading company would still be annexed and she would be left without any backing. After she was caught alive by Yin Tianzong, she would be imprisoned and raped. Unless she committed suicide, the outcome would only be worse than the first. Right, you mentioned a phenomena that had appeared in the Sun Burial Sand Sea. What is it? Yi Yun was more interested in that matter. He had inquired once when Ji Shuyan first mentioned it. However, she was bent on getting Yi Yun to leave as soon as possible, so she had not answered him. Senior, Grandpa had some guesses regarding the phenomena. He suspected that the phenomena were a result of a type of divine fire. It might have to do with the history of Sun Burial Sand Sea. Legends say that Sun Burial Sand Sea has already existed for hundreds of millions of years. The formation of Sun Burial Sand Sea was because a sun had plummeted into it, turning tens of millions kilometers into a barren desert. Grandpa believed that the sun that fell to this land was very likely an item of supreme yang. It was even possible that it was a true sun that had fallen. However, such a sun had been in gestation for hundreds of millions of years before finally giving birth to a yang spirit. The phenomena of recent times might be the birth of a yang spirit wisp. Oh? Yi Yun was greatly amazed by Ji Shuyan's words. How does your grandfather know of this? You previously mentioned that the birth of the phenomena resulted in many factions gathering around Sun Burial Sand Sea. Do they know that the Sun Burial Sand Sea is gestating a yang spirit? Ji Shuyan shook her head and said, it's likely they are unaware. They don't? Yi Yun gave Ji Shuyan an odd look. He believed that there was definitely no lack of experts in the factions that had gathered. As for her grandfather, it was not apparent that he was much more outstanding in strength. It was rather unusual that Ji Shuyan's grandfather had managed to augur something that others did not know. Ji Shuyan seemed to guess at his thoughts as she said, Senior, Grandpa was weaker in strength, but his talent in martial arts wasn't bad. However, he had dedicated his life to geomancy and divination. Grandpa came from the Heaven Secrets chapter, which is a sect that teaches geomancy and divination. Heaven Secrets. It also means divining the secrets of heaven. Grandpa established the Divine Secrets Trading Company, and the company's name stemmed from such reasons. Divine Secrets also means divining the secrets of the unknown. In fact, the study of divination and geomancy is unable to directly raise one's strength. Therefore, the Heaven Secrets chapter gradually waned. According to Grandpa, it had once enjoyed some glorious days in the distant past. It was a powerful sect that produced numerous divination masters. However, as geomancy and divination were too difficult to comprehend, many people wasted their entire lives without amounting to much. There were an increasing number of disciples that failed to hone their skills, and since divination is unable to directly raise one's strength, many of them chose to switch careers midway. It is also the reason why I mentioned that many disciples of the Heaven Secrets chapter, such as Old Woman Ren, do not cultivate in the sect's cultivation techniques. It resulted in the Heaven Secrets chapter to gradually lose its talent and wane. In Grandpa's youth, he had dedicated himself to geomancy and divination, eventually gaining success by becoming a divination master. He was internally designated as the future sect master, but 20,000 years ago, due to a power struggle within the Heaven Secrets chapter, something that deeply saddened Grandpa happened. He finally left Heaven Secrets chapter and established the Divine Secrets Trading Company in Sun Burial Sand Sea from scratch. The Divine Secrets Trading Company is in the herbal business. It needs valuable herbs to do well. With his geomancy and divination at the acme of perfection, he began divining the secrets of heaven in Sun Burial Sansi, accurately pinpointing the locations of several precious natural treasures. This allowed the Divine Secrets Trading Company to become one of the most famous companies in Sun Burial Sansi. So that's the case. Yi Yun was somewhat surprised. He never expected that the Divine Secrets Trading Company would have such a history and that the mastery of geomancy and divination could be used to search for natural treasures. Such a mystic art was indeed fascinating. As such, the matter regarding the Yang spirit was also understandable. The external factions neither knew divination nor did they understand the Sun Burial Sansi. It was naturally difficult to comprehend what was happening from simply the phenomena. As for Ji Shuyan's grandpa, he had been in business for 20,000 years in Sun Burial Sansi. He was acutely familiar with every inch of Sun Burial Sansi. Compounded by his perfected divination, he probably understood the entire setup of Sun Burial Sansi. What he could see was something that others could not compare with. Ji Shuyan hesitated for a moment before taking out a few stones that resembled agate and handed to Yi Yun with both hands. "Senior, please take a look. These are pure Yang divine stones that Grandpa had found in the past. According to him, ordinary stones will be burned by the gestation period of a sun spirit and turn into such divine stones. If Senior is interested, these divine stones are yours." Ji Shuyan placed the divine stones in Yi Yun's hands. Seeing the red-colored stones, Yi Yun immediately felt the energy in his meridians circulate rapidly. Intricate bursts of pure Yang power reached straight to his dantian from his palm. It was extremely comfortable. And most important of all, Yi Yun realized that the divine tree seed in his dantian was growing once again after it absorbed the pure Yang power. Yi Yun had a feeling that if he allowed the divine tree seed to absorb all the energy of these pure Yang divine stones, the growth to the divine tree seed would be far more effective than the pills and relics that he had previously consumed, combined. If the divine tree seed were to mature fully, he would also gain great benefits. His cultivation level and strength would be greatly enhanced. Yi Yun became excited the moment he had such thoughts. The Sun Burial Sansi might be an opportunity for him, so he believed that there was a need for him to stay behind to check it out. Chapter 1063, Aggressive Compulsion. Translator, Sitalan Editor. Having made up his decision, Yi Yun did not engage in a pretentious act. While keeping the pure Yang divine stones, he said to Ji Shuyan, "Since Miss Shuyan says so, I won't stand on ceremony. These divine stones are indeed useful for me, so I'll be keeping them." "Senior, go ahead and keep them." When Ji Shuyan heard Yi Yun, she did not show any attachment to the divine stones. On the contrary, she was delighted. From her point of view, Yi Yun was extremely strong and she was much weaker than him. Under such circumstances, she would be happy as long as she could help Yi Yun in any way. Yi Yun continued, "I'm planning to stay in Sun Burial Sansi for a period of time. I'm unfamiliar with this area, so I'll be disturbing Miss Shuyan for a few days by following you back to the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Perhaps I can help resolve some troubles for you in passing." Yi Yun had saved Ji Shuyan out of convenience and did not find it a huge favor. However, Ji Shuyan had provided him with information and items that were extremely valuable to him. It was only necessary for him to give Ji Shuyan a tiny bit of help appropriately. Yi Yun felt that it was only right, but when Ji Shuyan heard that, she was overjoyed. She had immensely prayed that Yi Yun could accompany her back to the Divine Secrets Trading Company and help her awe the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. However, what sort of person was Yi Yun? He was able to kill the old woman in seconds and easily eliminate the slave worms in her body. How could she entice such a peerless expert to work for her? What nerve did she have to request that of him? Although she had sworn to repay Yi Yun for the lease of new life he had given her and that she was willing to do anything for Yi Yun, even to the point of willingly be his maidservant at his command, it was all dependent on Yi Yun's wishes. If he did not like it and left immediately, it would be unbecoming of her to forcefully follow him, right? As such, Ji Shuiyan would still be driven into a corner as she stayed in Jade Luster City. It would only be an outcome slightly better than remaining in the hands of the old woman.
Thank you, Senior. Ji Shuiyan took a deep breath as her voice was trembling from her excitement.
She knew that she had encountered an important benefactor. Meeting him could change her destiny.
There's no need to thank me.
I naturally have my motives for staying here.
Also, don't keep calling me Senior. I'm not much older than you.
Yi Yin had previously mentioned his age, but she had subconsciously believed that he had mentioned it in passing after he showcased his might. It was unlikely truth that he was about her age, but now, with Yi Yin mentioning it again, Ji Shuiyan was left dumbfounded.
He really isn't much older than me? He could easily kill a warrior with a 4-story Dao palace before the age of 100.
How much of a genius was he? Ji Shuiyan naturally did not believe that Yi Yun was lying to her, as there was no need to. She fell into a daze and felt that everything about Yi Yun had far exceeded her imaginations. She had seen geniuses in the past, but they were nothing when compared to him.
Alright, I'll be doing some cultivation. Don't disturb me during this period. You can inform me again when we reach the Divine Secrets Trading Company.
Alright. Ji Shuiyan nodded her head in a daze before she left respectfully.
The group set off once again.
The armed escorts of the Divine Secrets Trading Company were left in the dark as to what had happened. They only knew that Yi Yun had resolved the matter after the appearance of an assassin. Their mistress was unharmed and fine. And from then on, they never saw Yi Yun come out of the sandboat. Ji Shuiyan had left the best room in the sandboat for Yi Yun, allowing him to cultivate without worry.
This continued till they reached Jade Luster City.
When they were just outside Jade Luster City, Yi Yun had scanned the area with his perception and he could not help but appreciate the thriving Jade Luster City. Jade Luster City was about 50 kilometers in circumference. Back in the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven, he had seen several cities. They were constructed grandly, frequently imbued with heaven-earth arrays and floating islands. This was also related to the ancient Fey's pursuit of glory. But in terms of prosperity, the cities in the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven were incomparable to Jade Luster City. As a human city, Jade Luster City was filled with stores and bustling crowds.
There were 2 major companies in Jade Luster City, Divine Secrets and Heaven Amplification.
There was also a large auction company.
The amount of trade between the 3 factions reached an astronomical number on a daily basis. The headquarters of Divine Secrets Trading Company was located in the southeastern corner of Jade Luster City.
There, it took up a space of 3 to 4 kilometers in circumference. There were pavilions, towers, and terraces in it, comparatively better than royal palaces.
One had to pass the city gate to enter the city. The massive sand boat appeared tiny in front of the magnificent city gate. When the convoy came in front of the city gate, Yi Yun saw people lined up outside the city gate to welcome them. The welcoming party was rather impressive with more than 30 people present. They were dressed uniformly and the road had been cleaned. Yi Yun was originally reflecting on the support that Ji Shuiyan's Divine Secrets Trading Company received. It was only a simple return to her residence, but a welcoming party had been gathered outside the city gate. However, just as this thought flashed across his mind, he knew that he was mistaken. He had noticed that Ji Shuiyan was not happy about it. Instead, her expression had turned ugly. Yi Yun raised his eyebrows as he had a vague guess. Indeed, at the next moment, the person leading the party stood forward and said, "I'm Yang Yenguang from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. I have been waiting for Miss Shuiyan all this while. Young Master Yen wants me to pass a message that he has set up a banquet at his place and wishes to have a welcoming banquet for Miss Shuiyan. I hereby invite Miss Shuiyan to oblige with her kind presence." Yang Yenguang's cultivation level wasn't high and he had a mustache that resembled strokes by his mouth, making him look like an advisor. He had bowed at Ji Shuiyan and hung a smile on his face. Yi Yun stroked his chin.
Clearly, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company had received news ahead of the Divine Secrets Trading Company convoy's return. They had set up a banquet with malicious purposes. If Ji Shuiyan were to attend, she would be like a lamb sending itself into the jaws of a tiger. It was a trip with no return. Ji Shuiyan was infuriated with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company's aggressive compulsion. Over the past few days, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company was increasingly certain that her grandfather had perished. They had done things in a high-handed manner, and today, they had invited her to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. They were planning on giving the final culling strike. Although she had Yi Yun, Ji Shuiyan did not dare to lose all decorum with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company so simply, even if she dearly wished to do so. She was afraid of causing too much trouble for Yi Yun. After all, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company was not to be trifled with. She repressed the anger in her heart and compromised by saying, "Thank you, Advisor Yang, for welcoming me. However, I'm exhausted from the journey and my subordinates need some rest as well. We will need some time to energize ourselves in Jade Luster City before we pay a visit. Miss Shuiyan, what you say really makes things difficult for me. If I were to fail to fulfill young Master Yan's orders, I will be punished." Yan Yengguang pinched his mustache, and although he had a smile on his face, it looked like he was hiding his nefarious thoughts. Ji Shuiyan's heart sank. She knew that it was probably not that simple to resolve the situation today. Chapter 1064, Unforeseen Changes at Divine Secrets Residence. Translator, Sitalan Editor. Enter the city. We'll be returning to the residence. Ji Shuiyan did not wish to continue wasting her time on Advisor Yang. She planned on passing straight through the welcoming party and returning to the Divine Secrets Trading Company's residence. Ji Shuiyan had already started planning her restructure of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. She planned to dismiss any members who showed disloyalty. Then, she would withdraw a portion of Divine Secrets Trading Company's accumulated wealth to hire new experts. In the past, Ji Shuiyan would not dare to take such dramatic actions. If she did so without a true expert like Yi Yun to keep things stabilized, then the reckless invitation of Dao Palace Realm warriors as guest elders would only bring disaster. It was even likely that the entire Divine Secrets Trading Company would be swallowed clean. Although Yi Yun had agreed to help her, she didn't want to rely on him so much that it would be burdensome. If Yi Yun's cultivation was delayed, he might end up being displeased. Once she had newly hired experts, she could stabilize things herself. Just as Ji Shuiyan's convoy passed Advisor Yang, she heard him say in an eccentric tone, "It seems Miss Shuiyan doesn't plan on showing me respect as my status is lacking." That's all right. Since Miss Shuiyan had an arduous journey, it is only right that she return to the residence for rest. I'll be returning to report to young Master Yan that he may travel to the Divine Secrets Trading Company residence and set up a banquet there. Miss Shuiyan wouldn't decline that, right? What? When Yang Yengguang said that, Ji Shuiyan's expression changed. Set up a banquet at her own residence. It had always been that the master of the house would set up a banquet to invite guests. How could a guest go to someone's residence to set up a banquet? Unless. Ji Shuiyan was extremely tense as she envisioned an extremely terrible possibility. Quickly return to the residence. At Ji Shuiyan's order, the convoy sped up. Although Jade Luster City was bustling with people, there were dedicated channels for the trading convoys. Ji Shuiyan and company were able to quickly reach the Divine Secrets residence. Along the way, Advisor Yang's welcoming party had followed closely behind them. Therefore, when Ji Shuiyan arrived at the residence, Advisor Yang's group wasn't far behind. She ignored Advisor Yang and hurriedly approached the Divine Secrets Trading Company residence. What awaited her made her expression turn completely cold. A welcoming party stood ready at the Divine Secrets Trading Company residence as well. However, the confidants she had entrusted to guard it were not among them. Most troublingly, the residence's head steward and her personal maidservant were not present.
Reasonably, they should have been waiting by the door when they received news of her return. But instead, the ones welcoming her back were two Dao Palace Realm guest elders of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. The person standing in the position of honor sported a goatee. He held a golden smoke pipe in his hand, and his name was Gong Yang Nian. Behind him was a middle-aged scholar named Xiao Kellen who looked like a man of literature. They did not show a tinge of respect when they saw Ji Shuiyan approach. They didn't even open the door for the mistress in advance. Instead, they cupped their fists toward Advisor Yang, who now caught up with Ji Shuiyan. One of them said, "Advisor Yang, you have come. Please come on in." "Ha, Mr. Gong Yang, it must be tough on you." "I had no other choices either. Your mistress didn't plan on showing me any respect and insisted that the banquet be held at the Divine Secrets residence. I could only follow her here." Advisor Yang stroked his tiny mustache and said in a somewhat displeased tone, "Ha ha ha. Advisor Yang, what are those words of yours? But it's all right, both of our residences aren't very far apart. We will be one sooner or later. It doesn't matter where we host the banquet." When Gong Yang Nian said that, he languidly waved his hand at a subordinate and said, "Guards, why aren't you helping the mistress disembark the sandboat?" "Yes." A few strong men responded and marched toward the sandboat. Instantly, Ji Shuiyan's armed escorts were dumbfounded. Even the most dim-witted ones were starting to realize what had happened. Gong Yang Nian and Xiao Kellen, the only remaining two Dao Palace Realm guest elders of the Divine Secrets Trading Company, had already switched allegiance to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. During the days when Ji Shuiyan was away from the company, the duo had usurped the residence. As it stood, they were probably in full control of the Divine Secrets Trading Company headquarters. Both of them were Dao Palace Realm warriors and had worked in the Divine Secrets Trading Company for years. They definitely had a network of associates. With them joining forces, together with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company's support, who could resist them? As for the allusion to the two companies becoming one, people not in the know would even think that Gong Yang Nian was the true owner of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. As for Ji Shuiyan, she looked like she was the granddaughter of Gong Yang Nian who could be married away at any time. Gong Yang Nian. Even though Ji Shuiyan had repeatedly told herself to silently endure hardship, this was simply too much for her to bear. He was taking bullying to an extreme. "My grandfather did nothing but treat you well. 1,000 years ago, when you returned from a mystic realm with severe injuries, my grandfather thought nothing of giving you valuable herbal pills. He saved your life and ensured your cultivation level remained intact. And honestly," she continued, "the way I have treated you has been impeccable. I have always treated you as a senior. Just a month ago, you needed a ginseng fruit pill to attempt a breakthrough to the third-story Dao Palace. I gave you all that you needed. But now, as you stand here at the third-story Dao Palace, this is how you repay me?" Ginseng fruit pills were pills used by Dao Palace Realm warriors. Even an organization such as the Divine Secrets Trading Company had difficulty producing them. However, Ji Shuiyan had no choice but to give several to Gong Yang Nian. After her grandfather and the group of elders perished, Ji Shuiyan had no choice but to let him have them, despite knowing that he was up to no good. If not, he might have immediately revolted. This was the tragedy of those who lacked strength. Despite knowing that he was fishing in troubled waters and had forced her hand, Ji Shuiyan had no other choice. Gong Yang Nian ignored Ji Shuiyan's anger. He ignited his smoke pipe and sucked at it before leisurely spewing out a cloud of smoke. "Miss Shuiyan, are you reprimanding me? Back then your grandfather only spared me a small amount of pills, and I had been loyal to the Divine Secrets Trading Company for many years since. I have long returned whatever I owed. Furthermore, my entry into the mystic realm resulted in more than a simple injury. I had a Dao fruit shattered. I asked your grandfather for a fate coherence pill, but he refused. It made me lose the Dao fruit forever, affecting my future. How much of a favor do you think your grandfather has given me? As for the ginseng fruit pill you gave me, what of it? You expect me to toil for you and fight the Heaven Amplification Trading Company for a pill? Gong Yang Nian grunted unhappily. Even though she was still angry, Ji Shuiyan became depressed after hearing his words. Helping a man once gains gratitude, but not helping that man again gains hatred. Gong Yang Nian showed no gratitude to her grandfather for saving of his life. Instead, he was disgruntled over not having a fate coherence pill. The fate coherence pill was a heaven-defying divine medicine that could change one's life. It was nearly a legend and completely priceless. Its value was such that the Divine Secrets Trading Company would need to sell at least 70 to 80% of its assets to be able to afford it. Even if her grandfather wanted a pill of that level, he would not be willing to spend the amount. She sighed sadly as she looked at the middle-aged scholar behind Gong Yang Nian. Elder Shao, do you think the same too? The middle-aged scholar held a fan in hand as he shook it gently. He said with a smile, Miss Shuiyan, why are you still asking such a naive question at this moment in time? A wise man understands the times. Your grandfather and a number of grand elders are no longer around. Why should we stay on in the Divine Secrets Trading Company? Furthermore, a marriage would benefit you as well. Without it, how do you plan to ensure the future of your estate? Chapter 1065, The Sword is Wherever One's Thoughts Are. Translator, Sitalan Editor. When Xiao Kellen said those words, everyone present was stunned. The chairman was no longer around? There were rumors that the chairman and a few grand elders had disappeared. However, they were just that, rumors. Even though the Heaven Amplification Trading Company had probed the Divine Secrets Trading Company several times in their attempts to annex it, the Divine Secrets Trading Company took the lower stance and endured the transgressions. Many within the Divine Secrets Trading Company held fast to the belief that the chairman's absence was only temporarily. He was bound to return one day. But today, this thinly held belief had been poked through by Xiao Kellen. It was a drastic measure to reveal the truth in public, but it paid off. It completely destroyed the final defense Ji Shuiyan had. The many that were loyal to the Divine Secrets Trading Company now found their faith wavering. The chairman and the grand elders were dead. Then, isn't the Divine Secrets Trading Company finished? How could the few of them hope to fight off the Heaven Amplification Trading Company? And, forgetting the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, they were no match for the betrayers Xiao Kellen and Gong Yang Nian. Several looked at Ji Shuiyan in anticipation of her rebuttal. However, Ji Shuiyan remained silent as though she was silently acquiescing the truth. This sent a chill through everyone's hearts. So it was true? Ji Shuiyan glared coldly at Xiao Kellen. The fan he held was constructed by a refining master with the best materials, all funded by the wealth of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. It had cost a small fortune. Xiao Kellen was very pleased with the fan. He would often use it to both look refined and as a weapon to kill his enemies. But now, the seemingly well-mannered and soft-spoken Xiao Kellen was more heartless than anyone, kicking Ji Shuiyan while she was down. What you suspect isn't wrong. The Divine Secrets Trading Company is finished. Since it is destined to be destroyed, why not pledge your allegiance to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company? You might still be left with something. It will be good for both you and the mistress. The mistress should know the rules of Sun Burial San Si. A faction without an expert supporting it is destined to be annexed by others. Xiao Kellen seemed to read the thoughts of everyone. As he waved his fan he seemed eloquent and assured, but the moment his voice faded, dazzling, golden beams flashed, suddenly and completely blinding Xiao Kellen. The dazzling golden light flared with a fearsome killing intent. Sword beams. The middle-aged scholar was alarmed as he rapidly retreated. He circulated his protective energy and swatted his fan open, placing it before his chest. The fan was an enchanted treasure he had always been proud of.
As it snapped open, countless blue ice crystals appeared in front of him, shielding his body completely.
Wall of ice crystals. Xiao Kellen cultivated ice elemental laws.
Although its offensive strength was slightly weaker, its defensive strength was akin to divine metal. But in a mere moment the golden beams struck the blue ice wall and, with a loud shattering sound and a series of explosions, the ice wall blasted apart. The golden beams did not lose their momentum and instead formed a golden divine sword.
3-foot passage sword, eternal and instant. Chi chi chi.
The divine sword came thrusting at Xiao Kellen, leaving him appalled.
He even gave up his fan and hurriedly threw it in front of him.
Panicked, he took out his interspatial ring, looking for a trump card that might save his life. However, the sword beam was too fast. It was a pure yang sword fused with spacetime laws. It ignored the distance between space and, as the saying goes, the sword is wherever one's thoughts are.
Boom!
With a loud explosion, Xiao Kellen's protective Yuan Qi did not even last a second before it shattered. The sword beam continued hurtling relentlessly through the void, leaving behind a resplendent golden trail. It instantaneously penetrated Xiao Kellen's body 12 times, leaving 12 bloody holes in his body. A moment before, Xiao Kellen had taken out 2 purple talismans from his interspatial ring. However, he never got the chance to trigger them, nor to even to muster the thought of doing so.
He was thrown backwards with a tragic cry. Pa!
Xiao Kellen slumped to the ground like a pile of rotten flesh.
His body was covered in sword wounds.
11 of the 12 strikes had stabbed his limbs, upper abdomen and shoulders, with the intent to avoid his vital spots. However, the final strike had stabbed straight into his dantian, destroying it and shattering the Dao Palace.
Xiao Kellen's body convulsed, his face ashen.
He could only look on in disbelief at his dantian, as only horror and despair could be seen on his face. With his Dao Palace destroyed, it meant that his cultivation was forever crippled. Meanwhile, the threatening sword beam streaked through the sky in a perfect trajectory before returning to the sandboat. All who witnessed the scene stood with mouths agape, unable to close them for a long while.
An unforeseen event had happened too quickly.
Just a few seconds ago, Xiao Kellen appeared high-spirited, but now he was slumped to the ground like a dead pile of meat. The mysterious person in the sandboat managed to instantly maim Xiao Kellen without ever showing a hint of his face.
Who was it?
Everyone held their breaths as they looked at the sandboat in horror.
It sat quietly on the streets in utmost silence. A gentle breeze blew, causing the curtains over sandboat's windows to sway.
No one knew which window the sword beam had flown out from. Xiao Kellen declared just moments before that a faction without an expert to hold it down was destined to be annexed by others. Then, he was maimed by some mysterious person in the sandboat. Despite being a Dao Palace realm warrior, Xiao Kellen was so simply finished.
Is the chairman back? A guard loyal to the Divine Secrets Trading Company said in excitement. However, someone shook his head and said, the chairman doesn't have such strength. Although Xiao Kellen is scum, his cultivation level is a 2-story Dao Palace. How could the chairman have the ability to finish him so quickly? People broke out in a flurry of discussion and the situation turned chaotic. Which esteemed person is in there? Advisor Yang swallowed a mouthful of saliva as his expression turned ugly. However, he had the Heaven Amplification Trading Company backing him, so he still projected confidence. However, Gong Yang Nian did not have such favorable treatment. His palm was breaking out into cold sweat. He knew deep down that if Xiao Kellen had not started mouthing off, he would have been the target of the powerful figure. Although his cultivation level was slightly higher than Xiao Kellen, he was not much stronger because of a shattered Dao fruit. He had just barely avoided a maiming. Warriors were accustomed to a lofty status of riches, beauty, and a long lifespan at their fingertips. All of this was because of their strength. The moment they were maimed, they would be full of a feeling worse than that of death. As he had this thought, Gong Yang Nian felt reverberations through his mind.
He hurriedly took a step forward, cupped his fists, and said anxiously to the sandboat, "I wonder which senior is in there."
There might have been some misunderstanding.
Although the Divine Secrets Trading Company was established by the chairman, I have put in great effort for it to be developed into what it is today. One might even say that I have performed deeds of valor. Senior, do not be deceived by the schemes of others.
Can you afford me your presence so that we can talk about it? Gong Yan Nian hurriedly explained, afraid that he would not have the chance if he were any slower. But at that moment, shoo! Shoo! Shoo!
The golden sword beam shot out once more from the sandboat. It seemed to blot out the sky as the aura it exuded was even stronger. His vision completely filled by the sword beam, Gong Yang Nian's expression turned ashen. He had said whatever he could, but the other party did not leave any room for negotiation.
The overwhelmingly strong needed no reason to kill or maim a person.
This, too, was the rule of Sun Burial Sansi.
Chapter 1066, Disintegration. Translator, Sitalan Editor. Don't take bullying to the extreme. Gong Yang Nian never expected Yi Yun to be so harsh.
With a loud cry, he hastily burned his blood essence. He was acutely aware that he was no match for Yi Yun. Compared to having his cultivation maimed, the cost of burning blood essence was nothing.
Gong Yang Nian withdrew a golden saber from his interspatial ring, with which he slashed out countless blade beams.
He held nothing back, and the resulting beams seemed imbued with the power to conquer mountains and rivers. These blade beams rammed the sword beams head-on.
Clang!
The blade beams and sword beams clashed violently. As he was a third-story Dao Palace warrior, in addition to burning his blood essence, the power emitted by Gong Yang Nian's blade beams surpassed that of Yi Yun's sword beams. However, the gap between their laws could not be bridged. Yi Yun's sword beam was infused with great Dao laws and, based simply on nomological insight alone, Gong Yang Nian was far inferior to Yi Yun despite being at the Dao Palace realm.
Boom!
The blade beams and sword exploded simultaneously, sending out scattered energy blasts. Gong Yang Nian retreated many steps back, but with all of his strength he managed to block all of the sword beams. He had managed a complete parry. Gong Yang Nian was overjoyed that he had survived the calamity. He believed that if he held out long enough, the Heaven Amplification Trading Company would definitely send reinforcements.
After all, he was still of use to them.
Just as these thoughts flashed across Gong Yang Nian's mind, he suddenly observed that within the myriad golden sword beams there was a faint and lusterless gray sword beam that moved extremely fast. It was nearly untraceable.
Ha!
Gong Yang Nian roared as he slashed his saber once more with all his might. As he had overdrawn on his blood essence, the strike was powered by his life essence. However, his sacrifice was not in vain. His saber slammed down, splitting the gray sword beam.
Phew! As the blasts from the explosion dissipated, Gong Yang Nian stumbled to the ground from midair.
He still clutched his golden saber, but his hair was disheveled and his face pale. The important thing, however, was that he survived. It was quite impressive that he could survive such a powerful strike even at the desperate point of burning blood essence.
Gong Yang Nian was indeed strong as he lived up to being a third-story Dao Palace.
He was much stronger compared to Xiao Kellen.
Gong Yang Nian wiped the blood on the corner of his lips.
Although he had paid quite a price, he was still pleased with his performance. He hurriedly bellowed, "I do not care who you are. You are strong, but Jade Luster City does not allow fighting or killing. Anyone who violates this will, at the very least, be maimed of their cultivation level or even executed in serious cases.
Do you think you're above the law of Jade Luster City simply because you have decent strength? That you can freely start a massacre in Jade Luster City? No matter how powerful you are, do you think you can fight the entire Jade Luster City?"
Gong Yang Nian deliberately exaggerated the law enforcement strength of Jade Luster City. It was not a lie that one would be wanted by the law enforcers if they committed murder. However, the so-called law enforcers were actually staffed by the two largest trading companies and the Seven-Star Auction Company. With the Divine Secrets Trading Company basically vacating its position, there were, in fact, only two other factions.
Gong Yang Nian meant to frighten Yi Yun into thinking that he'd have to fight the entire city.
He had guessed correctly that Yi Yun was an outsider and did not know the customs of Jade Luster City. It was a ploy to buy himself time.
Indeed, there was silence from the sand boat after Gong Yang Nian said his piece.
The life-severing sword beams no longer appeared.
Gong Yang Nian heaved a sigh of relief.
He guessed that his cultivation was saved as the mysterious person had qualms about Jade Luster City's rules. The surrounding crowd had also started to analyze the current situation. Advisor Yang twirled his tiny mustache as he secretly estimated the mysterious person's strength. He presumed that the mysterious person was someone Ji Shuiyan encountered on her trip. It was probable that the person had some relations with the Divine Secrets Trading Company, but they did not run deep. This meant that the person would not go to great lengths to help the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Most likely, they would quit midway if things could not be easily resolved. The mysterious person had instantly defeated Xiao Kellen but could not do so with Gong Yang Nian. Furthermore, they were apprehensive toward Jade Luster City's rules. In that case, their strength was approximately at the 5-story Dao Palace. This strength was considered good in Jade Luster City, but it did not equal invincibility. Ignoring the unfathomable Seven-Star Auction Company, even his Heaven Amplification Trading Company had the power to fight such a person. Indeed, at that very moment, a few counselors from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company were contemplating ways to make the mysterious person pay, until someone discovered something amiss.
Look at Gong Yang Nian. What's that on his stomach? The sudden exclamation made everyone cast their gazes at Gong Yang Nian.
They saw his abdomen light up with grey Dao runes that looked extremely abstruse. They projected onto the void and started spinning slowly. This. Only then did Gong Yang Nian notice the activity on his abdomen. He was appalled when the grey Dao runes began to form a wheel. He could even see faint phantoms of demons and gods on the wheel. Most disturbingly, the center of the wheel was directly aligned with his dantian. Had a seal been conjured at his dantian without him knowing? Instantly, Gong Yang Nian was frightened out of his wits as he realized what could happen in the next instant. Hold on. Senior, spare me. Ah! All looked on helplessly as Gong Yang Nian suddenly screamed, and the black wheel bloomed with a resplendent luster. In a flash, Gong Yang Nian's flesh at his abdomen was completely ruptured and minced by the black wheel. Be it human or fey, once their bodies were minced, large quantities of blood would flow out. The mixture of blood and minced meat would only be a disgusting sight. But at that moment, not a single drop of blood flowed out of Gong Yang Nian's abdomen. It should be said that the instant the blood and minced meat appeared, they were annihilated by the black wheel. It was the definition of disintegration, leaving nothing left. Gong Yang Nian watched the horrifying scene taking place on his body. The horror and despair he felt were indescribable. Senior! He cried out frantically, but his abdomen, dantian, Dao Palace, and everything else were completely annihilated by the destructive storms. Nothing was spared. Immediately following that, Gong Yang Nian's entire body was twisted and completely devoured by the vortex that the black wheel had transformed into. The vortex lasted for a few seconds before it slowly disappeared. When everything calmed down, it was as though nothing had happened. Everyone gazed at the spot where Gong Yang Nian once stood, which was left without a trace of blood or even a tattered piece of cloth. They had all seen a man disappear into thin air. While training in martial arts, warriors came to understand that they might die in battle. However, no matter how tragic their deaths, there would at least be something left of them. Even if they were eaten by ancient Fae, there would be bones left. This manner of death, where all traces of Gong Yang Nian were wiped away, left the scalps of many people tingling. What law was that? They thought before that Xiao Kellen's fate was sufficiently tragic. His was a living death with his cultivation crippled.
But compared to Gong Yang Nian's outcome, Xiao Kellen was rather lucky.
He could at least commit suicide and leave behind a complete corpse. Instantly, everyone looked at the silent sand boat again. There was complete silence, with everyone shuddering in fear.
Everyone from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company feared for their very lives. As the leader, Advisor Yang's face turned blue. He felt that his standing there made him no different from a retard. However, he did not dare leave. The person inside the sand boat was a malignant star. The moment he attempted to escape, he would be annihilated.
He was nothing more than a worm under the foot of this stranger.
Chapter 1067, No Mercy. Translator, Sitalan Editor. Even as he crippled Xiao Kellen and disintegrated Gong Yang Nian, the mysterious person never once showed his face. In that moment, those from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company felt that the sandboat's fluttering curtains were akin to the beckoning hands of death. Suddenly, the curtain across the main door was pulled open. It seemed as though the mysterious person could walk out at any moment. Upon seeing this, Advisor Yang was frightened out of his wits. He hurriedly stumbled down, nearly prostrating himself. He hurriedly said, "Senior, spare me. I'm only a messenger. I never meant any harm to Miss Xueyan." Advisor Yang was considered someone of great stature in the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. Although his cultivation level was unimpressive, he was great at producing profits, so he gained a high position. But now, he nearly peed himself just because someone was about to pull open curtains. It made one reflect on how laughable stature and wealth were in front of absolute strength. Advisor Yang knelt on the ground for a very long time, not daring to lift his head. He knew that this person could kill him without blinking. Compared to his life, what was his dignity worth? But time passed, and nothing happened. He mustered the courage to lift his head and was immediately dumbfounded. He looked at the sandboat's door. The person who had pulled open the curtains was a yellow-dressed maidservant. She looked about 16 and even had a bit of a baby face. She looked back in shock. The maidservant had been inside the sandboat, only aware of some chaos happening outside and that her mistress was in danger. The ensuing battle only lasted seconds, so, with her limited cultivation level, she naturally had no idea what had happened. She only saw what her eyes showed her. She never expected the situation to evolve into such a state. She never thought that Advisor Yang, who held a great deal of power in the Heaven Amplification Trading Company's upper echelons, would prostrate himself to a maidservant like her. Furthermore, the way he knelt down was like he was a pug. It left her completely dumbfounded. Advisor Yang's expression was as though he had just swallowed a plate of shit. It was as ugly as could be. He even thought of dying. He might bear losing some dignity by peeing himself in front of a yun, but here he was prostrating himself in front of a young lass. Wasn't this a complete and utter disgrace? He had never been so ashamed in his life. At that point, Yun had yet to appear, so Advisor Yang did not dare rise. He was stuck between having to continue kneeling or to risk standing up. He wished he could become a piece of dog shit. At least then, no one would pay him any attention. Miss, I'm here to pass a message." The maidservant blinked and said with great difficulty. Everyone present was looking at her. There was even an important figure of the Heaven Amplification Trading Company prostrated before her. She had never experienced such a situation before, so it was only natural that she stuttered. "Yes, here, go ahead," said Ji Xueyan. How could she be so calm? Her Divine Secrets Trading Company was nearly on the brink of annexation, with Xiao Kellen and Gong Yang Nian turning coat with no sense of gratitude. That turn of events left Ji Xueyan so infuriated that she nearly vomited blood. But in a blink of an eye, Yi Yun had used his absolute strength to maim and destroy the two, saving the desperate situation. This swift settling of grievances soothed her heart greatly.
After being repressed for so long, she finally could hold her head up high. Even when her grandfather was alive, she had never realized how absolute strength could be used to control a situation. She was infinitely grateful to Yi Yun, or it might be better said that she was infinitely envious of him. That was how people should live. Despite business bringing riches that could rival a country's, it was all evanescent bubbles that could be destroyed at any time. How could it compare to the sweet feeling of total control with absolute strength? Young Master Yi said that the rest will be up to you to handle. His exact words were, "Do as you wish. No need to show mercy." Yi Yun had only destroyed the two strongest people. Although his actions were swift and unforgiving, he had only killed people from the Divine Secrets Trading Company. The betrayers of the Divine Secrets Trading Company were naturally dealt with by the Divine Secrets Trading Company. The Heaven Amplification Trading Company could not fault them. Yi Yun deliberately left those from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company untouched. This was not out of fear, but because he did not know what Ji Shuyan's thoughts were. After all, the situation between the Divine Secrets Trading Company and Heaven Amplification Trading Company was something to be judged by Ji Shuyan. Yi Yun was only an outsider, so he did not plan on intervening too much. Simultaneously, Yi Yun also wanted to understand Ji Shuyan's ability and attitude by her way of handling things. When Advisor Yang heard Heer's words, he was delighted. He knew that he was out of danger. As long as he did not perturb the god of death, everything would be fine. As for Ji Shuyan, he was completely unafraid of her. What could the last do? The mysterious person was powerful and acted in an unbridled manner. He could kill anyone he wanted. But Ji Shuyan, she still needed to do business in Jade Luster City. Everything under the Divine Secrets Trading Company was still being repressed by the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. Even if she found brief respite with the mysterious person's support, she still needed to consider many aspects. How could she risk losing all decorum when she needed to consider the 7-Star Auction Company, who maintained order in Jade Luster City? If she were to act rashly in this moment of joy, how could she not be afraid that the Heaven Amplification Trading Company would seek revenge once the mysterious person left? She would be devoured completely. With this realization, Advisor Yang crawled up from the ground. He could confidently face Ji Shuyan, so why was there a need to kneel? He straightened his back and calmly straightened and dusted his clothes before saying, with a face full of smiles, "About that, Shuyan. Uncle Yang was a bit rash a moment ago. You are tired and you naturally need some rest. Yet, I insisted you come to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company for a banquet. I was way too unreasonable. So, I'll be bidding you farewell. Shuyan, you should calm down and have a good rest. I'll explain everything to young Master Yin. In the future, make sure the Divine Secrets Trading Company does well. If there's a piece of the pie for the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, there will definitely be a piece of the pie for the Divine Secrets Trading Company." Advisor Yang had seemed to transform into a completely different person. It was as if the person who had seconds ago been frightened out of his wits and acted in a nauseating manner was not him at all. Ji Shuyan remained silent. She quietly observed the change in Advisor Yang's attitude. It made her more aware of the importance of strength. Having strength allowed one to rule over everything in a true manner. The rest was nothing but an illusion. Even though she had borrowed Yi Yun's might, the treatment Advisor Yang had given her and Yi Yun was completely different. He despised her completely. Even the words he had just said implied the subservience of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Although she knew that, Ji Shuyan could not kill Advisor Yang. At least, she could not do it now. The moment she lost all decorum with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, there would be war. Ignoring the fact that Ji Shuyan could not count on Yi Yun's willingness to be embroiled in a war, the true crux of the issue was that the Divine Secrets Trading Company would not gain many benefits even if it won the war. An internecine struggle would only benefit a third party. If it went into an unplanned war, the Divine Secrets Trading Company would not be able to rob the Heaven Amplification Trading Company of its wealth, such as stores or business territories. Most of it would probably be taken over by the Seven Star Auction Company. It was impossible for the Divine Secrets Trading Company to destroy the Heaven Amplification Trading Company before fighting the Seven Star Auction Company, right? Advisor Yang had already thought of any ideas Ji Shuiyan might be having. He was certain he would be fine. The Seven Star Auction Company was an impressive faction, with presence in every one of the 7 cities of Sun Burial Sanxi. Even the mysterious person would have to be servile in front of such a massive faction or face possible destruction. Well, Shuiyan, Uncle Yang won't be disturbing you any further. I bid you farewell. Just as Advisor Yang said those words, Ji Shuiyan suddenly waved her hands. Shoo! 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 Bright icy beams flashed as 12 pocket-sized swords flew out of Ji Shuiyan's sleeves. Although Ji Shuiyan's cultivation level was 1 full realm lower than Yi Yun's, she was still the best amongst the Divine Secrets Trading Company's younger generation. As for Yang Yanguang, he was only an advisor with no talent in martial arts. His cultivation level had only been forcefully raised to the Yuan opening realm through various pills. His combat strength was extremely weak, and when stacked against Ji Shuiyan the difference between them was incomparable. Yang Yanguang was astounded. He never expected Ji Shuiyan to suddenly attack. Not to mention, Yang Yanguang had his own experts around him. It would have been easy for any one of them to block Ji Shuiyan's swords. But no one moved for fear of Yi Yun. The outcome was pwa pwa pwa. The 12 tiny swords pierced straight through Yang Yanguang's body. 4 of the swords even amputated his 4 limbs. Ah! Yang Yanguang let out a tragic cry as his body flew out. The excruciating pain made him lose control of his bladder as he looked in panic and disbelief at Ji Shuiyan. His body was convulsing as blood soaked the ground. Bitch, are you mad? Ji Shuiyan's expression was cold. She took a step forward as the 12 swords circled Yang Yanguang with their tips pointing at all his vital points. She coldly stated, I will not kill you but you must pay. Consider the slicing of your limbs interest. Also, when Ji Shuiyan said that, she looked at everyone from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company around her. Whoever came to the Divine Secrets Trading Company today shall not leave. All of you are to stay behind. Men, take all of them down. Chapter 1068, Cold-Blooded Queen. Translator, Sitalan Editor. Take all of them down? The Divine Secrets Guards were alarmed upon hearing Ji Shuiyan's orders. They were also aware that the Divine Secrets Trading Company had been at odds with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company in recent times. The former had taken on an abiding stance in every aspect, afraid of a potential conflict with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. But today, they were ordered to take down dozens of people from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, including quite a number of important figures. Naturally, Yen Tiansong wouldn't send trivial figures in a delegation to invite Ji Shuiyan. Aside from Advisor Yang, who had his limbs severed, there was Yen Tiansong's younger agnate brother. Ji Shuiyan. What are you doing? I'm Yen Yangpin, Yen Tiansong's younger brother. Will you imprison me, knowing it means war with the Heaven Amplification Trading Company? Yen Yangpin would have fared better in not saying his brother's name, because hearing it only made Ji Shuiyan more incensed. She knew that Yen Yangpin was far inferior to Yen Tiansong. He was a profligate scion and lacked ability. However, by virtue of his status, he was a domineering force in Jade Luster City. He bullied men and sexually violated countless women. Some of the women he had even raped to death. As she remembered all of this, Ji Shuiyan immediately felt a strong desire to end his life. She suddenly beckoned her hand, and the 12 pocket-sized swords that had been pointing at Advisor Yang hurtled straight at him. Ah!
Seeing the 12 cold beams approach, Yan Yangpin was frightened out of his wits.
He hurriedly raised his hands in desperate hope of blocking her attack, but he had spent all his time and effort on women.
How could he be the match of Ji Shuiyan? The swords tore straight through his protective Yuan Qi.
He could only manage a tragic cry as his hands and feet were severed by 4 tiny swords. Before any blood could spurt out of his stumps, another 4 swords sliced through his elbows and knees. Following that, the final 4 swords separated his upper arms and thighs from his main body. Ji Shuiyan had not only amputated Yan Yangpin's 4 limbs, she had even split them into 3 segments. Everyone was flabbergasted as they saw it play out. The situation wasn't as serious with Advisor Yang. Although he enjoyed a high stature, he was still an outsider to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. As for Yan Yangpin, he was the grandson of the Yin family's patriarch. How could he let the matter go with his grandson reduced to such a state? The Yin family's patriarch possessed strength on a level that Gong Yang Yan or Xiao Kellen could not compare to. He was an absolute expert and an existence that allowed the Heaven Amplification Trading Company to set off waves. In fact, although the Divine Secrets Trading Company was said to be one of Jade Luster's 2 big companies alongside the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, the latter had a much longer history and heritage than the former. Take them down. With a wave of her hand, Ji Shuiyan exuded the demeanor of a lofty cold-blooded queen. Many people drew cold gasps of air as they looked at Ji Shuiyan. For she had really only been in charge after her grandfather had disappeared. And the way she did things showed her frailty. She would endure if possible. It was the very reason why Advisor Yang showed no fear of Ji Shuiyan in the beginning. To everyone, she was just an inexperienced young lass, which did not amount to much. She lacked a resolute boldness. But now, she was quick and decisive, far exceeding the expectations of everyone present. The cost of belittling Ji Shuiyan that Advisor Yang and Yan Yangpin had to pay was to be reduced into limbless human poles. With a chaotic flurry of footsteps, everyone from the Heaven Amplification Trading Company was restrained. Even some of the stronger ones gave in quietly as the dread Yi Yun had instilled in them was too intense. Send a message to the Heaven Amplification Trading Company to bring 3 Heaven Ingress pills to redeem those that have been imprisoned by me today. If not, I can't guarantee that they will return alive. Ji Shuiyan created these conditions in order to complete what Yi Yun had exhorted her to do. She would try her best to find and collect all sorts of treasured herbs and mystic pills and medicine in order to help Yi Yun locate the Sun Burial Sansi's Yang spirit. With the Divine Secrets Trading Company in civil conflict, and being attacked by an external force, it was in quite a destitute state. It was a good use of trash, exchanging these people for 3 Heaven Ingress pills so as to strengthen Yi Yun. Heaven Ingress pills were not cheap. The Heaven Amplification Trading Company would definitely feel the pinch if they sacrificed 3 of them. It was obviously for the best if they complied, but if they couldn't, then those in the Heaven Amplification Trading Company would begin to doubt their loyalty. It was not necessarily true that working for the Heaven Amplification Trading Company was for the best. Yi Yun easily read Ji Shuiyan's thoughts. Actually, she had left some leeway despite her actions seeming ruthless. If Yi Yun had been the one taking action, he would not only be severing limbs. He would destroy their dantian or take their lives away. It was possible to replant limbs, but if a person's dantian was destroyed, the person was truly crippled. Ji Shuiyan's actions were first to gather pills to enhance Yi Yun's strength. Secondly, she could gauge the Yin family's bottom line. She wanted to know how much they would tolerate before waging all-out war. Ji Shuiyan felt confident enough to act so decisively because she had the backing of Yi Yun. Upon having these thoughts, Yi Yun nodded his head. He was quite pleased with how Ji Shuiyan had handled matters. She had neither forgotten his orders, nor lost her bearings because of him. She seemed ruthless and decisive, but everything had been deliberated carefully. If Yi Yun were to do it himself, he would not have considered that much. He would have killed them to end all contention. However, Ji Shuiyan weighed her options, her goal to maximize the benefits.
Throw these people into the dungeon. We shall return and set up a banquet.
Of course, Ji Shuiyan wasn't setting up a banquet for herself, but for welcoming Yi Yun. Ji Shuiyan also knew that Yi Yun was dedicated to cultivation, so it was unlikely he enjoyed a rowdy scene. Therefore, although there were dozens of tables placed outside, making it extremely lively, inside the chambers, where Yi Yun was, there was a spacious and silent guest hall. There was only a tiny table, but expensive top-grade spirit food sat on it. Ji Shuiyan knew that Yi Yun liked items rich in heaven and earth spirituality, so she did not spare any costs in preparing these things for him. In the hall, other than Yi Yun, there was only Ji Shuiyan and her most trusted personal maidservant. Hours ago, Ji Shuiyan had purged the trusted lackeys of Gong Yang and Xiao Kellen upon her return. She then rescued her people from the dungeons. Her actions were stunning and effective. In less than 2 hours, she had taken back control of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Ji Shuiyan showed no mercy to those that had betrayed the Divine Secrets Trading Company. They were exiled, maimed of their cultivation, or executed. Everything was handled according to the rules of the Divine Secrets Trading Company. 2 hours were spent on the purge and 2 for judgment. At the same time, she had to set up a feast, simultaneously having joy and bloodshed. In just a short 4 hours, Ji Shuiyan, who everyone thought of as a weak lamb, had truly turned into a cold-blooded queen. Other than those that had ulterior thoughts when it came to Ji Shuiyan, even those who were originally loyal to her began to feel a tinge of respect and fear for her. For example, old man Changsun that had treated Yi Yun before initially thought of himself as a senior in front of Ji Shuiyan. However, he was now extremely respectful to her. However, this girl that was considered a cold-blooded queen in the entire Divine Secrets Trading Company was sitting obediently in a kneeling position beside Yi Yun. With a flask of spirit wine, she would meticulously fill Yi Yun's cup to the brim just after he downed it.
Chapter 1069, Maiden Under the Moon. Translator, Sitalan Editor.
Although Yi Yun said that Ji Shuiyan didn't need to serve him, she insisted on being right by his side, attending him.
Her personal maidservant, meanwhile, was sent to the door. Due to all the earlier events, it was already late into the night.
A bright moon hung above the trees and moonlight beamed into the room. It shone through a few luminescent moonstones, lighting up the room. As a result, everything in the room seemed to be covered with a thin layer of silver sand. The spirit wine that came out of the flask resembled shattered silver, which gave it a profound and mysterious look. As for Ji Shuiyan, who sat quietly under the moonlight, she was dressed in an outfit made from thin, breathable cloth. Her beauty was exquisite, as she shone like a maiden under the moon. The people of the Divine Secrets Trading Company probably never expected their cold queen to have such a demure and tranquil side to her.
I'm done eating.
In the future, there is no need to be so extravagant with the meals. Yi Yun truly felt that such spirit food was too wasteful. It was more effective to refine rare herbs into pills than to make such spirit food. After all, spirit food needed to have taste as a consideration, so how could it compare in efficiency to pills? The more extravagant the spirit food, the more of its medicinal essence was wasted.
All right. Ji Shuiyan responded lightly as she remained kneeling beside Yi Yun.
She wore a light blue dress. Her neckline was exposed, revealing a neck as white and delicate as porcelain. There was also a ravine by her chest that could barely be seen.
She had a voluptuous figure and the dress pushed her breasts up.
Whenever she knelt down, the dress pulled taut under her legs, perfectly accentuating her curvaceous hips.
As Yi Yun ate, he kept sensing a faint fragrance lingering around his nose.
He looked at Ji Shuiyan and found a pleasing sight staring back at him.
Oh! Your face has recovered.
Yi Yun suddenly noticed that, although Ji Shuiyan still wore a veil that covered half her face, the faint scars on her face had vanished. Yes, when young master removed the slave worms from my body, it cleansed the worm's poison, making it much easier to treat the wounds on my face.
And in the past, I never treated them because I was frequently scarred. But now, well, of course, things are different. As Ji Shuiyan spoke, she took off her veil, revealing her beautiful face. In the night she looked like an orchid moistened with dew, silently blooming under the moonlight. Yi Yun could not help but be impressed by Ji Shuiyan's beauty.
It reminded him of Lin Xintong. Above all else, he wanted to find Lin Xintong first.
However, the sheer vastness of the 12 empyrean heavens made it too difficult to search for a single person.
He needed to first have the strength to be able to traverse such an expansive world. With his thoughts wandering to that point, he finished the cup of wine in his hand and said, "I'll be resting."
Yi Yun's room during his stay in the Divine Secrets Trading Company was naturally arranged by Ji Shuiyan.
She nodded and brought him to a bedroom. The bedroom covered a wide area. There was a bed in the middle that could fit 4 to 5 people. In front of that was a carpet weaved from the fine down feathers of spirit birds. There were elegant drapes surrounding the bed, giving the room an air that was exquisite and luxurious. The bed was already made. There were pillows and blankets made of heavenly silk, and there was a spiritual gathering array installed. It allowed one to cultivate even as they slept. Ji Shuiyan's personal maidservant was left standing by the door as Ji Shuiyan personally spread the blanket for Yi Yun. However, when she finished she did not immediately leave, and instead looked at Yi Yun. She bit lightly at her lips, hesitating to speak. "What's the matter?" asked Yi Yun. "Young Mastery, I would like to know how long Young Mastery plans on staying in Jade Luster City."
Ji Shuiyan asked the question that she had until then stifled in her heart.
She knew that everything she had done, the ruthless acts and the thunder-like violence, were all built on a premise. It all hinged on the notion that Yi Yun would stay behind in the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Before, Ji Shuiyan had made people fear her because of her decisiveness and ruthlessness. So no one dared to belittle her.
However, the moment Yi Yun left, her cold-bloodedness would only be reduced to a joke.
Those who had been subdued by her would mount crazy acts of vengeance on her. Ji Shuiyan did not even dare to imagine that outcome. She would undoubtedly suffer endless torment and pain, not even given the luxury of death. Although Ji Shuiyan wished that Yi Yun could stay with the Divine Secrets Trading Company, she knew that he was dedicated to his cultivation. He was in pursuit of the lofty peak of martial arts. There was no way he would show any interest to a tiny company like the Divine Secrets Trading Company. Under these circumstances, Ji Shuiyan would be asking a great favor of Yi Yun if she requested he stay longer in Jade Luster City. How could she expect him to help her without any recompense? It's temporarily uncertain. It might be as short as a few months or as long as a year. It was impossible for Yi Yun not to know her thoughts. However, he could not stay in Jade Luster City forever. It was too limited, and he had only come for the Yang Spirit and other treasured herbs. However, finding the Yang Spirit depended entirely on fate. If Yi Yun failed to find it after a year, it wouldn't make sense for him to continue staying, right? There is no need to worry about the Heaven Amplification Trading Company. Before I leave, I will help you resolve the problem.
Thank you, young Master Yi.
Ji Shuiyan said softly. She knew that without strength, one was unable to protect their estate in the Sun Burial Sand Sea. Even ignoring the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, the Divine Secrets Trading Company would still be annexed by other factions. And it would be too difficult to nurture experts loyal to her in the span of a few months to a year. Ji Shuiyan did not speak her thoughts. She knew that Yi Yun had already done enough for the Divine Secrets Trading Company.
Miss Shuiyan, is there anything else?
Yi Yun was already prepared to rest. Ji Shuiyan still did not leave despite having finished spreading out the blankets for him. As Ji Shuiyan had her head constantly lowered, he could coincidentally see Ji Shuiyan's cleavage leading straight down from the top. It could inspire infinite thoughts. Yi Yun paused for a slight moment before turning his eyes away. Ji Shuiyan blushed. She never managed to say what was on her mind. After a moment of silence, Ji Shuiyan said, "Young mastery, I do not know how to repay you for the fresh lease on life you have given me. Unfortunately, what I value the most might not be what you like. However, I have here a Heaven Secrets compass. It should be able to help you." As Ji Shuiyan spoke, she took out a jade box from her interspatial ring. It opened to reveal a gray metallic compass inside. There was a Taiji Yin Yang symbol in the middle of the metallic compass. Surrounding the symbol were complicated runic patterns that looked ancient and abstruse. "This is..." Yun picked up the Heaven Secrets compass. It was quite heavy. It was unknown what material it was constructed from. Ji Shuiyan said, when Grandpa left the Heaven Secrets chapter, he had brought with him a mother-child pair of Heaven Secrets compasses that can be used to seek treasure. Later on, when the phenomena in Sun Burial Sand Sea happened, Grandpa brought the mother part of the Heaven Secrets compass in search of the Yang spirit. However, he never returned, so the mother part of the Heaven Secrets compass was lost in the Sun Burial Sand Sea along with Grandpa. What I have here is the child part of the Heaven Secrets compass. It doesn't matter even if young mastery does not know how to use the Heaven Secrets compass. As long as the child part approaches the mother part of the Heaven Secrets compass, they will naturally sense each other. Hence, young mastery will be able to use it to find where Grandpa met his demise. I believe that wherever that happened wouldn't be far from the Yang spirit. Chapter 1070, Thoughts of a Girl. Translator, Sitalan Editor. I see. Then I really have to thank Miss Shuiyan. The Heaven Secrets compass was extremely useful for Yun. As he did not know any geomancy or divination techniques, he'd be searching for a needle in a haystack if he tried to seek the Yang spirit in Sun Burial Sand Sea. However, it would be completely different with the Heaven Secrets compass in possession. The enchanted treasure would definitely be of great help to Yun. Well, and also these are pure Yang divine rocks left behind by Grandpa. I'll leave them with young mastery as well. As Ji Shuiyan spoke, she took out an intricate bag made of hide from her interspatial ring. She poured a total of 8 divine rocks of various sizes from the bag. Instantly, the entire room was filled with a thick, pure Yang aura. Yun was delighted when he saw the items. Ignoring the Yang spirit, just the pure Yang divine rocks were very rewarding for him. Yun knew that both the pure Yang divine rocks and the Heaven Secrets compass were of significant meaning to Ji Shuiyan, as they were items left behind by her grandfather, to say nothing of their innate value. Thank you, Miss Shuiyan. I'm grateful for it. Yun was a thankful person. Having received these precious items, he certainly had to help the Divine Secrets Trading Company to the end. Then, I'll thank young master as well. Ji Shuiyan gave a bow and, before she left, she saw that Yun had already begun to sit on the bed and cultivate with the pure Yang divine rocks. She paused slightly, taking a thoughtful glance at Yun. Her gaze was part gratitude, part tenderness, and also held a hint of wistful longing. Following that, she sighed inwardly before silently leaving the room and closing the door. With the divine tree seed and pure Yang divine rocks, Yun's cultivation could only be described as improving by leaps and bounds. His foundation was formed by 4 9-leaf Dao fruits, which were already heavenly objects. They automatically absorbed the fragments of the worldly laws, so there was no need for Yun to wonder if his nomological insights were firm. Although Yun required a lot more resources than other warriors to break through, as long as he had treasured herbs, he could directly break through. That was the heaven-defying nature of having 4 9-leaf Dao fruits. This heaven-defying cultivation speed could be maintained for a prolonged period of time. It was simply unimaginable for other Dao manifestation realm warriors. Under the nourishment of the pure Yang divine rocks Yuan Qi, the divine tree seed began growing once again. A tender leaf spread out as the divine tree sapling was growing at a visibly rapid rate. It sprung from a few inches to nearly a foot. Meanwhile, pure Yang Yuan Qi, void of any impurities whatsoever, was regurgitated back to Yun's body. He could sense his cultivation level improving rapidly.
Before, he was already at the peak of the early stages of the Tao manifestation realm. But now, he had broken through to the middle stages of the Tao manifestation realm in one fell swoop. Furthermore, there was no loss of momentum as he continued to improve to the point of him reaching the peak of the middle stages of the Tao manifestation realm. This feeling of sensing his own strength increase made Yi Yun overjoyed. As he cultivated, his body was emitting a pale golden luster. It was not only limited to his body, either, for the entire room filled with golden light. It looked as though a god had descended into the room. However, Yi Yun's room was located in the backyard of the Divine Secrets Trading Company headquarters. There were guards stationed one ring after another. No one could enter, so no one could see the phenomena. Apart from Ji Shuiyan, of course. The entire backyard only had Yi Yun and Ji Shuiyan, if maidservants were excluded. At that moment in the silent and deep night, Ji Shuiyan stared at the golden beams from Yi Yun's lit room from a darkened room as she fell into a daze. "Miss, it's time to bathe and then sleep," Ji Shuiyan's personal maidservant reminded her softly. She noticed that her mistress had spent a long time standing by the window. "All right." Ji Shuiyan nodded as she gradually undid her belt. Garment after garment began to fall gently, revealing her smooth skin and perfect figure. The moonlight illuminated her skin like scattered silver. Ji Shuiyan raised her long legs that resembled creamy white jade as she gently strode into a bathing pool. The bathing pool was huge, but the water was cold, which she had deliberately asked for. To warriors, a little chill was nothing. Flower petals were sprinkled in the water, and their faint fragrance hung in the air. Ji Shuiyan waded silently through the bathing pool as she sensed the refreshing feeling of the cold water streaking past her thighs. After a while, she gradually sat down as she let the cold water soak her crystalline skin bit by bit. It went from her slender waists to her ample twin peaks before reaching her cheeks and hair. Finally, she closed her eyes as her entire forehead went underwater. She hugged her knees, her bent legs pressing on her soft breasts, squeezing out a lithe and graceful shape. She sat quietly in the bath and allowed the flowing water to distort her beautiful looks. Although she had gained control of the Divine Secrets Trading Company, for some reason, she felt a faint sense of loss. Perhaps on the day she met Yi Yun, at a point of utter despair from the torture of the old woman in red, his appearance had already left an imprint in her heart. One that could not be easily wiped away. She had also thought that if he was not of such a lofty existence, she could use what she valued most to repay him. But instead of it being a repayment, it was actually something she wished for. She was always haughty and had high standards. Until now, she had rebuffed all men. She already knew that the distance between them was too great. She didn't even have the will to muster her courage. That was probably the source of her depression and confusion. If she had powerful strength and a talent that exceeded everything, so what about the Divine Secrets Trading Company? As long as she accomplished her grandfather's wishes, she could travel the world in pursuit of anything she wanted. "Miss." The personal maidservant's voice rang in her ears, but Ji Shuiyan did not get up. The quietness of the underwater world made her strangely calm. Elsewhere, in the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, an elder in an adorned robe sat on a lounge chair. His expression was sullen and terrifying. The elder was the true person in charge of the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, Yin Pingchuan. The night's shocking events at the Divine Secrets Trading Company left him appalled. Apparently at the 5th floor Tao Palace realm. He managed to instantly kill Gong Yang Nian but never revealed his face. His appearance is unknown. That was all the news that Yin Pingchuan had received. He's only at the 5th floor Tao Palace. Although his strength isn't bad, he would be too naive to think of repressing our entire Heaven Amplification Trading Company alone. A cadre of the Yin family said angrily. "That's right. There's also that bitch, Ji Shuiyan. She dared to imprison our people and severed Advisor Yang's for limbs. She was fortunate that the young lord fancied her. Yet, she didn't appreciate it.
She's only seeking death. Patriarch, give the command.
It was the Divine Secrets Trading Company which took action first. Even if we were to flatten the Heaven Amplification Trading Company, the 7-Star Auction Company would not say a thing. There's no way that the Divine Secrets Trading Company wouldn't be wiped out if all our experts took action. The gathered members of the Heaven Amplification Trading Company were agitated. However, Yin Pingchuan was frowning. He had a nagging feeling in his heart that the mystery person was not so simple.